Welcome to the BC Duck Golf Finals. Here is the layout at Heritage Park. Hole 1 starts off with a 340-foot par 3 with one tree that slightly guards the basket. Hole 2 is a par 4. It is almost 600 feet long and it has a slightly protected green with lots of OB around it. Hole 3 is 262 feet. The basket will be hanging from the branch of this big tree, so it will make it a lot harder. Hole 4 is 250 feet, but it's protected by two very big bushes. Make sure to avoid them to make it onto an elevated green. Hole 5 has a narrow but short fairway, with OB along the whole right side. Hole 6, you can either go forehand or backhand through one of these two main gaps. It opens up after you make it out of those couple trees, and then you're putting at a fairly flat green. Hole 7 is one of the tightest fairways you'll ever play. You have to hit your line perfectly to have a putt. Hole 8 is 420 feet, and you're throwing a tee shot up a huge hill and trying to make birdie on a fairly flat green. Make sure you don't go long because there's OB. Hole 9, you have to avoid some of these trees or go around to get to the basket. Hole 10 is almost a blind shot, and you're throwing it under this branch and trying to make it stop on this hill. This is one of the scariest greens you'll ever play on. Hole 11 has very tight OB as you get closer to the basket. Hole 12 is the most straightforward shot you'll ever play. On hole 13, you have to make this Mando right, otherwise you go to this drop zone. If you can make this big gap and not go long, then you'll be putting on a very flat and open green. Hole 14 is 270 feet, and the basket is placed on this huge hill. On hole 15, you'll be throwing 350 feet downhill on a slightly guarded basket. Hole 16 is a little shorter, but there's a lot of OB short of the basket. Hole 17 is a 570-foot par 4. There's a lot of trees in the fairway, and the basket is on a slopey green. On hole 18, you gotta be careful to make it inbounds, because everything outside the flags is hazard. It's a pretty cool hole to end your round with. Now let's take a look at the layout in Centennial Park. Hole 1 is a 230-foot tunnel shot with OB on the right side. On hole 2, you have to make it over the gully or you go to this drop zone. On hole 3, you have to choose one of the many gaps to make it to the basket. Hole 4 is a 250-foot par 3. Make sure you don't go long because there's OB. Hole 5 has a Mando left of this tree. If you make it through, you'll be putting at a slightly guarded basket. Hole 6 is only 200 feet, but it's a very sharp turn to the left and the basket is elevated. Hole 7 is the first par 4 with a mando right of this arrow. You make it around a sharp corner before making your way to the basket. This is a very unique hole. Hole 8 is a 240 foot shot with an early double mando. If you don't make it, you go to the drop zone. It opens up after you make it through the double mando. Hole 9 is a 235 foot slightly guarded hole. Hole 10 is quite similar as it's also downhill, but it has a tighter line with more obstacles in the way. Hole 11 is a short one, but it has a lot of trees in the way and there's OB if you go long. Hole 12 is another par 4, and the green is on an island which you have to make it onto if you want a birdie. Hole 13 is one of the easier holes on the course, with not much risk of going OB and the basket being only slightly guarded by one branch. Hole 14 is an island hole. If you don't make it, you go to this drop zone. Hole 15 is another par 4. It's about 500 feet uphill, and to make it onto the green, it's tricky because there's OB on both sides. Hole 16 has a couple big guardian trees to miss. If you make it through, you'll be putting for birdie. Hole 17 is almost 280 feet uphill with a low ceiling. You'll be finishing your round on hole 18, which is 348 feet long, and you have to make it through this double mando before making your way down the fairway and into the basket. Good luck in the tournament.